All right, so we're going to be talking about some Google Ads today. But before we do that, let's just do like a little bit of an introduction here. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Marissa. I'm the content specialist at 910, which means I handle everything from digital marketing campaigns and SEO campaigns for clients, which is creating everything from Facebook ads, Google ads, blog posts, everything within that kind of realm for our clients. And then Ryan, do you want to do a little bit of introduction for yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Ryan Blais. I'm one of the owners at 910. My role is business development, so I really work with our clients to determine what are the products and services that would benefit them in promotion. And so today we're obviously going to talk about what are the relevant sort of marketing promotional channels and tactics, if you will, that make sense in an economic downturn or COVID-19. And I know that you reached out on social media to get some questions, and I think we got a good one from one of our good friends.
Yeah, so this one comes from Chris Beauchamp. So that's, he has a company called Beauchamp Photography. And the question is, there's actually two questions and they're both really great. So the first one is, why should I run Google Ads if my website is already doing very well in organic search? And then the second part of the question is, what kind of monthly ad budget do you need to set to generate real leads? So before we dive into really talking about the ads specifically, we might want to just kind of give a rundown about the different ways you can get discovered on Google. So
yeah,
Ryan, why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you betcha. And actually, just as a quick note, so Chris Beauchamp has Beauchamp Photography here in town, but he's also the owner of a film company called The Distillery. So he is a content creator extraordinaire, primarily for photography and film. But so the question, he has a really good question here. So why should I be paying for Google Ads if my website is already performing well organically or earned on search? And the long and short question is that there's actually different parts of where you can be discovered on Google search page. And he wants to know kind of the difference between the two. And there is a rationale to be said that if you have a strong search presence organic, that does give you a bit of a rationale to potentially not have to spend on paid. And I think of sort of organic as the long marathon. It's tougher to achieve, whereas paid is quick and instant and can be very targeted. In a perfect world, you want to be doing both. And as I'll go into this, you actually want to be doing a little bit more than that. So first of all, I'm showing right now, everyone is familiar with Google, but not everyone's familiar with the fact that you can pay Google as a company to have your ads placed at the top. And then when you're placing your ads at the top, the key question is, when should my ads show? And the answer to that is when people are searching for specific keywords that relate to your products or services. So Google Ads is a platform where you can do that. And there's lots of variations of how you can do this. And today we're just going to talk about the ads that actually show up on search. So I'm going to use some examples from our own agency. So as you can see here, you can imagine if someone went in and searched for 910. So in this case here, you can see that the first, what we call organic result, not the ad, because the ads are paid for, whereas this one is earned. Someone went online on Google and searched for 910, and then Google said, I think you're looking for 910. Big surprise. So generally speaking, unless someone has butchered your website, you've done a really bad job with your website, when someone searches you by name, they're almost certainly going to discover you in the organic search, and you're probably going to show up first. You can see actually here, we're not running an ad for this because it's pretty odd. We don't think people are searching us by name. And if they do, guess what? We know we're going to be number one. Yeah. So then when do we place ads? So I'm just going to go to the next example here. Imagine if someone's searching by the term branding. They're looking for, say, a logo design or a visual identity or branding standards, and they don't know us by name. They don't know that 910 exists. And they're saying, Google, I'm looking for a branding agency. And they might have said graphic design or logo design or visual identity. They'd use varying terms, but then they also intuitively said Grand Prairie. Most people do this very intuitively. You don't have to. Google understands where you're searching from based on your IP address, but most people naturally localize, quote unquote, their search by saying Grand Prairie, Beaver Lodge, whatever. So now what you're seeing here is actually the very first ad at the top is a paid placement for 910. And we're basically said, hey, Google, if anyone searches with these keywords, and we've outlined a number of keywords that relate generally to the service branding, we want our ad to show up. And you'll notice that there's actually 3 ads showing up. There's our local ad, Ignite MP, and then another local competitor, Salt Media. So it's not always the case that our ad shows up first. Sometimes our ad's second, sometimes our ad's third, sometimes our ad doesn't even show up, or it's way down at the bottom. In this instance, there's no ads on the bottom. Usually there is. The idea here is that there's multiple agencies in this case that are competing for this ad space. And depending on how much we're willing to pay, and depending on how much our competitors are willing to pay, and dependent on the quality score of our ads and the landing page to which it goes, I'm getting a bit technical here, our ad will show up more or less prevalent for more or less dollars. Now, the great news about this ad is if no one clicks on it, I don't pay Google. When someone does click on it, I pay anywhere between $5 to $12-ish. It can be actually lower than that. It can be higher than that. It depends on how much competition there is. And so that seems quite expensive, but in this case, I know someone's looking for a branding. I'm willing to pay that, say, $7 cost per click to get them onto my website, and not just any space on my spot on my website, but the section of my website that talks specifically about branding services, where there's then a form and a phone number for them to convert the lead. And now I have a chance of connecting over the phone or email or whatever, maybe a Zoom call like this, and book a meeting. And then from there I track. And at the end of the day, you can imagine how I could track on the monthly how much I've spent and how many people saw it, then how many people clicked on it, then how many people called, and then how many people closed business. So just as a little side note here, last quarter we spent about $6,000 on ad spend, which I tracked into $27,000 of new business for a specific campaign. So that's about, for us, about a 400% return on that.
So getting a little bit ahead of it, but like that's essentially how you're going to come with your ad budget spend, right? Is how valuable the leads are coming in, right?
Yeah, see, if you're not getting leads, then it's not, you don't have a really good rationalization for your ads. But generally speaking, we want people to click on the ads. And if people are clicking on the ads and they're like, oh crap, I was looking for social media consulting and I clicked on an ad and brought me to a landing page all about logo design, it's a mismatch. It's more likely the person's going to take off because that's not what they were looking for. But guess what? We still have to pay Google for that. So we have to be very targeted in our messaging. We have to understand what's the language that they're searching in. Mm-hmm. So to go to Chris's question about how much should you be spending per month, the fee breaks down into two parts. There's the agency fee, if you're hiring an agency like ours to manage the process, to do the targeting, to do the keyword research, to create the ads. We usually do multiple versions of the ads. It's called A/B testing. What happens if we use the word logo? What happens if we use the word branding? One of those will perform better for reasons related to how people think about what they're searching for. And we generally move the budget towards the ad that's performing better. Then included in our agency fee is also the landing page, which we design, all of the graphic design, all of the reporting, basically everything you need to do to get it done. The second part is how much do you pay Google? So for this, what we do is we use your credit card, a client's credit card, and there's zero markup from us and you pay Google directly based on the amount of clicks. Now, what we do is we set a maximum monthly budget, which is typically dependent on the amount of keywords that we're focusing on. So we typically choose what are called two focus areas. So for example, one campaign is related to keywords related to, say, website design, website building, website developers, things like that. And then another focus area would be anything to do with graphic design, logo, branding, etc. So the key difference here is you have different landing pages, different messaging. Someone looking for a website should not stumble upon the information about a logo, and vice versa. So by being targeted like that, we can increase the quality of our score, which Google rewards us by having a lower cost per click. And what we find for the Peace region is, generally speaking, for most of our clients, they tend to find in an ad budget range of about $250 to $750. I haven't seen it usually lower than $250. There's plenty of times I've seen it higher than $750, but as a starting point, we would say, be ready to budget $500 per month for your ad spend. Now, when does that ad spend go larger? If you're increasing more focus areas. So now I'm introducing a campaign about websites, a campaign about logo design, and a campaign about social media training, let's say. So now we've increased our keywords, which means more people are going to discover these ads, which is good for us. And there's going to be more clicks, which we're paying cost per click. The other thing that expands the budget is when widen or open up the geographic perimeter. So if we only want these ads to be seen within the Peace region, it'll cost this much money. But if we want them to be seen through all of Alberta, costs this much money. And then all of Western Canada, guess what? It's a larger budget, obviously. So it really depends on how wide geographically you're targeting and how many keyword focus areas you're choosing. So
also has a dependency on industry, correct? So like certain industries will just naturally have a higher, because there's more people bidding for specific keywords, for example, right?
that's
So
a very good example. So in our industry, you can see the second ad here, Ignite MP. Actually, maybe I'm just not familiar with that one. Ignite. Oh, no, I know Ignite. Of course, they are local. Never mind. But quite often what we find is ads being served to people in Grand Prairie for agencies that are in New York and LA. You know, they'll sell you a logo design and they're not local. Whereas a mechanic shop is likely only going to see ads from its local competitors. So depending on your industry, you'll have more or less competition and higher or lower quality competition. So financial industry and mortgages tends to have really high competition. Whereas we find quite often clients were like, hey, guess what? None of your local peers are advertising. So you have what we call low-hanging fruit, which means likely lower cost per click because no one is bidding you up.
right.
So now I just want to expand down. So in this case, someone searching for branding Grand Prairie, they see our ad, maybe they click on it, maybe they don't. Then they scroll down. Then they see this map area, what's called Google My Business. It's basically a map directory combined. And Google will display this when it believes you're searching for something local, so for localized searches. And it tries to plot the businesses, the relevant businesses to the keyword on a map, and then it lists them over here. And you can see that here again, we're listed along with some competitors. And if someone clicks on that, that's free. That's an earned result based on the fact that we've updated our Google My Business directory. We took the time to do that well and filled it out properly. We've optimized it. And these perform really well. People trust these Google Map directory listings, and they're very relevant and they get a lot of clicks. And then as you scroll down, you get into what are called the organic, or what some people call the regular search results. There's 10 of these on a page. You cannot pay Google for these. You have to earn these. So this is called organic or earned. And so the best way to think of this is someone has searched for branding Grand Prairie, and now Google has the task of legitimately providing what it believes is the most useful website to that person based on what they've searched. And in this instance, we're showing up as number one organically. And then as you can see, there's our competitors down there. And if you scroll down to the bottom, there'd be 10 organic listings. So now if I just go to a different example, what you find is that depending on what the person is searching for, your results will perform differently, better or worse. And so in this case here, website design Grand Prairie, which would actually perform different than website developers Grand Prairie, even though they're both the same thing. You can see that our our paid ad is showing up. And now here's a good example of Squarespace. Squarespace is not located in Grand Prairie. They are a behemoth. Their offices are maybe in New York or Palo Alto or wherever the heck. And who are these guys? They're advertising in my market against me. But they have a service that they can sell digitally, in this case, website design. So we have an ad placement there. Then we go back to the Google Maps directory, and you can see here we are. And this time we're showing up in the second spot. And so I don't get too bent out of shape whether I'm number one or number two, so long as I'm there. And then as we go further down, you can see that here we are again showing up number one. But honestly, if you just change the variations of the terminology from website design to designers or website developer or build me a website Grand Prairie, we will generally show up 1, 2, or 3 along with our competitors. Sometimes we get bested, sometimes they best us. But where I get concerned is when I don't have a strong presence across paid ads, Google My Business directory, which you can actually place some ads in this map directory section as well, and then organic. Now let me show you an example of a service that we offer to clients. It's not our top line revenue. Our margins are really low, and it's like an auxiliary service we offer for current clients. If someone's looking for business card printing in Grand Prairie, or worse yet, rush business cards, I need them by Tuesday, we can help them with that, but we're not really a print specialist. So no surprise, we're definitely not willing to pay for an ad for that. And we're not showing up in the Google map directory here. And if you go through, here we're number 2 on the list, and I don't really, if I was number 4 on the list or number 6 on the list, I wouldn't really care. Like, we've earned that because somewhere on our website, it talks about the fact that we do print services. But for example, if I just change this to the example I said, Rush Business Cards Grand Prairie, let's see what happens. Now there's an ad for Vistaprint, also not local. Another ad, then the print shop is the #1 organic. They're local, awesome. And then Image Design is #2 organically. They also do print in-house. And as we scroll down, 910 is not showing up in organic. Sweet, because I probably don't want the phone call for a Rush business card. But we do get those phone calls, of course, and I usually refer them to a local print specialist that can do a quick turnaround and where that is their specialty.
Right. Okay, so that'll make sense. So you have the 3 different spots that you want to appear in. So like if you're appearing in one, is there one that you would want to appear in more, or is there one that you would consider more important or anything like that?
Yeah, the one that's the most valuable is organic. It's the one right here. It's the one that people most trust. It's also the hardest to achieve. You have to literally earn this by having a website that has high quality. And so really Google cares about 4 things. Everything falls into 4 buckets. This is the way I think about it. It's technical. So is your website securely hosted? Is your website mobile friendly? Is it structured with the right headings and metadata? All of this stuff your agency should just do with you. So when we build a website for a client, it's technically proficient. We cross that bar. The next thing is actually tougher and more important is content relevance. If you sell, I'll give you an example from the financial industry. If you're a financial advisor and you have a bunch of information about financial planning, but you neglect to use the words estate planning or retirement planning, and my mom goes online and she's looking for retirement planning Grand Prairie, and that's pretty darn close, but you don't use that language where your competitor website does. And moreover, they use language that explains the differences of the type of buyer from estate planning, maybe someone with a business and they have family planning needs, generational planning, that type of stuff. Retirement planning, maybe a baby boomer like my parents, and then maybe I would use the terminology financial planning. And to the extent that you use the language and developed good, relevant content on your website, what you're really doing is you're saying, hey, Google, trust me, the thing that the person's searching for, take a look at our website. We have the best information for this person compared to our peers. So you will earn that placement. And so this is obviously where you come in, Marissa, as our writer. You would interview the clients and try to get them to describe their business. And then they would give you 3 bullet points. And you'd say, aha, but can we expand on that? Because that doesn't give much information. Your competitors have paragraphs and paragraphs and pricing sheets and explanations about their variations of their products and services.
Yeah, I mean, Google is basically like a liaison. So it's just trying to help the person, right? So the other thing that I like to keep in mind, or that I would encourage clients to keep in mind when they're doing it themselves or if they hire it out, is to just always focus on like, how can I best serve that client, right? So there might be different questions that come up that you think are very obvious, but you actually get asked on it on every time you have a kickoff meeting or anything like that, right? With initial meeting with a client. There are so many things that come up every single time, right? Like that might be for us, like how long is the website going to take? All those kinds of questions. They're great to just answer because there's a possibility that people are Googling them as well, right?
Yeah, it's digital customer service, really. So a real life example, we're working with Fulcrum Group. They're an accounting firm in town, and Marissa is leading this project where as new information comes out from the feds as it relates to accounting type stuff, so these the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy Program and the CERB, that's the federal relief program, and then there's these programs for businesses about no interest lines of credit, and there's all a bunch of stuff coming out. And so what's happening is Fulcrum is gathering this information, filtering it, and sharing their subject matter expertise and helping to make sense of all of these programs. And so we're working with them to take their expert knowledge, put it onto their website. So someone in Grand Prairie that's searching for Canadian Emergency Relief Plan information, of course, the federal website will show up, but now there's a chance that the Fulcrum website will show up, which is a local service provider that can probably take a call, answer some questions, and that may or may not turn into new business, but it's certainly an opportunity for Fulcrum to identify who are the clientele in the market that need their expert guidance right now. And so what we're really doing there is we're focusing on that second column, which is the content piece. Timely, relevant, accurate information to convince Google that you should send people to our website when they have a question about CRB or the Canadian wage subsidy program or whatever. Now, so I mentioned the first two things that Google cares about. Technical, check, we got you covered. Content, that's a little bit on you. We'll help you, but you need to understand the nature of your business and be able to describe it. The third one is activity or traffic. The more activity or traffic your website gets, the more relevant Google believes it is, the more trustworthy it is. Just imagine Google being this algorithm in the sky looking down on two websites, your website and your competitor's website. And imagine your competitor's website has lots of traffic coming in, people coming to it from a Facebook page, from clicking on a link in an email signature, from just finding it in Google. And then also imagine a bunch of traffic going out. While they're on that website, they find a useful resource about a federal program. They click on the link and they go off to that federal program to learn. Now imagine your website has no traffic in, no traffic out. It's boring, it's dead, there's nothing going on. That doesn't give Google confidence that there's anything of value or relevance there. So traffic so for example, when I'll use the Fulcrum example, when you do a new post for them on their website, you then go to social media and you do a quick little post about that to drive traffic from social media onto their website. And then while someone's on the website, we have some sharing tools so people can very easily share that useful information out to their peer group on social media or email or whatever. And so this traffic in and out helps Google to give it basically a relevant score. Now, the last one is the unsexiest one, it's time. If your website is a week old and your competitor's website is 10 years old, they've been established for a long time. It's just a trust factor. There's not too much you can do with that. But generally, there's things we can do to signal higher trust, even if you haven't been around a long time. These generally fall in the tech category anyways, such as securely hosted website, SSL certificates, all this geeky tech stuff that you just don't have to worry about. We'll take care of it for you.
Yeah, time's the hardest one. And I know, like, if you don't have everything else in line, then you really, like, and you already are a new website as well, like, you're definitely not going to be showing up very soon, because, like, as much as you need to have everything else optimized, it will just take time, right? So
yeah, I want to go back to Marissa, I want to go back to Chris's explicit question, because now that everyone understands that there's really three parts to search. There's the paid ads, which Chris is saying, why should I pay for the ads if I'm already earning organic? So this case here, 910, we have number one organic spot. And again, generally, if you try different keywords, we're always about 1, 2, or 3. That's kind of our goal. And we have a nice placement in the Google Map directory. Why are we willing to pay for this? And the reason we're willing to pay for it is I do not want to risk. If someone raises their hand in Google Land and says, I'm looking for a website designer, Grand Prairie, I will pay for that click all day long because I want that phone call. I want the chance to talk to that person. I don't want to risk that. The second thing is that I know that people are generally distrustful of ads. So the good news is if someone sees that ad, scrolls right past it, then they see my Google business directory, scroll right past it, and then see my number one organic, they've had 3 impressions of 910. It actually could have been 4. In this case, it's not showing it, but we typically push ads into the Google My Business as well. So you'd actually see 2 910 listings here in the map directory. So then we just have a generally strong preference. Now, would I prefer for someone to click on my organic listing versus my paid listing? Yeah, of course, because then I'm not having to pay Google. But if they do click on it, guess what? I'm going to likely get a chance to earn that business. So it's really important to be very targeted about your ads. There's no way I'm spending ad money on auxiliary services where we're not trying to grow or they have bad margins or things like that. Now, the last thing, and this is, I'd say it's a small boost. Remember when I talked about that third column that Google cares about for your determining your organic placement? Activity and traffic is one of them. So paid ads do send traffic to your website. And since it's typically a qualified lead, someone who's been matched with what they're looking for, that ad says, matches that, then they land on the website. They're likely going to spend time on that website, do some reading, likely click on fill out a form or click on a phone us button, that type of thing. All of these things give good signals to Google about the efficacy of your website and gives a small boost. So paid Google ads can actually help your organic placement. I don't want to oversell that, but it is something to think about. But I'll maybe end with for your business, for your top line revenue, you really want to consider having the trifecta of search, which means paid ads, Google Map Business Directory, and a strong organic placement. And it goes from easy, the ads are easy, you just got to pay Google. The Google Business Directory, it's called Google My Business. It's pretty easy, but it's a bit time consuming. It's not, the interface on the back end could be overwhelming for some people. We can help, but it's pretty good to get started. And then organic is like, oh man, I have to earn that by building a good quality website. If you're in a position like Beauchamp would be with his websites, he can certainly rationalize not spending on the Google ads, but in this case, he'd be leaning very heavily on his organic placement. And then I would say, well, go ahead and test. How's your organic placement across all of your services? If someone's looking for wedding photographer or commercial photographer or professional photographer, the variation of, let's say, 50 keywords that would be relevant to his business. And then he'll get a report card basically, and he'll know if he has to up his game or augment it with some paid ads while he's trying to close some gaps on the organic side.
Cool. I actually want to talk a little bit about his second question as well. I know the question was basically what monthly ad budget do you need? And that kind of depends on a lot of different factors as we touched on, but I want to point out the generating real leads. Part of generating real leads, no matter where you're marketing them on Facebook or Google, is also the quality of the ad itself and the quality of where you're sending the person, right? So if you're advertising for a specific type of photography and you're sending them to a landing page that doesn't really talk about that, doesn't give them anything to do there, they're not going to be able to convert into a lead because there's just nothing for them to do. So it doesn't really matter how high your budget is, you're still probably not going to get a lead from it.
That's
so
right.
I think that's the other thing to remember about all this digital marketing. That's
right. And in that example, not only will you likely not convert the lead, so you're sort of wasting your money, worse, Google's charging you more cost per click because it's effectively penalizing you for not having a good quality ad. If someone clicks on an ad for logo design and we just send them to our homepage where there's just an overwhelming bit of information about all of our services and they don't know where to click next, that would have a higher cost per click than if we just directed them to the ads about the keyword was related to logo design. Our ad uses language about logo design, and guess what? When they click on it, they landed on a page where, surprise, surprise, it's information about logo design. Google says, thank you for giving them a relevant path to the information they needed. And then also, thank you for adding in a form where they could request a meeting, a Google map that showed where we're located, and a very clear touch to call button so they can get in touch with us. If you were to remove any one of those things, the chances of us converting that would be lower and Google would be penalizing us. So it's this kind of double whammy where generally these are the mistakes we see when people are doing self-serve or they're running their own Google ads. You can run your own Google ads, but you have to be very cognizant about what are your keywords that you're targeting, what's the language you're using, and very crucially, when someone clicks on the ad, where do they go and what do you expect to happen?
Yeah. I think I like what Chris says this a lot when she's talking to clients. Running ads, no matter what platform we're using, Google, Facebook, etc., it's a mixture of art and science. You have to know the blend of the two and really have to nail it. And it takes a bit. Sometimes we have to alter ads. Sometimes we have to, take a step back and go, okay, well, we're getting clicks, but they're not converting. So why? What's going on? What do we need to add? What do we need to change? All that stuff ends up coming in. And it's always a mixture of, understanding the technology, understanding the platforms, and doing best practices in that regard, and also doing our best creatively to engage the audience, right? So
yeah, to maybe open up the curtain a little bit on how the sausage is made, I want to explain a little bit about A/B testing, A/B testing, which really means we're creating multiple versions of an ad, and then we're going to see which one performs better. So a famous case study from this is way back when Barack Obama was first running for president. There's lots of examples of this, but this is just a really good intuitive example. They were doing ads peppered across the United States to encourage people to make donations to his campaign. And they tested out landing pages where he was wearing a red tie and one where he was wearing a blue tie. Legitimately, that was the nature of the difference. Which one's going to perform better? Who knows? You could maybe make some guesses based on Republican, Democrat, but one of them performed significantly better, like 400, 500% better. I'm pulling those numbers right out of my butt right now. I don't remember the exact number, but it was drastic. So obviously what that meant then is once they had that information of which one was performing better, they got rid of the red tie or whatever it was. I think it was the red tie that performed not as well. And then they doubled down on the blue tie. And then they introduced two more landing pages where they're both wearing blue ties, but one has a very active language for a plea, and one, maybe the next one used language that pulled on heartstrings or something like that. And then they would see which one performed better. Now imagine a process where you continually do that. You move towards ads that compared to the starting point, perform much better than if you were just sort of putting something out there and not testing. So that's one of the things that we do. It's one of the reasons why we have an agency fee attached to this. So I had mentioned that the average ad spend that you pay to Google ranges between $250 and $750 for Peace Region companies. Our agency fee is $500 per month, which includes all of the research for keywords, all of the writing of the ads, and we write multiple versions of ads as well. So we A/B test the actual language of the ads, and then we A/B test the landing pages as well. And so all of that, so the development, the graphic design, and then we review those weekly for performance, and we make improvements, changes to them. And then on the monthly, we report back to clients a written report where we make sense of the analytics and the data, and we recommend changes and sort of gather feedback, et cetera, et cetera. So on average, we find that most of the clients should be thinking about it's about $1,000 a month to do really targeted search advertising. And again, that's a blend between the agency fee and the ad spend. Now, one of the things, we're actually just working with Community Futures right now, where we've modified our digital marketing packages, both for Google and for Facebook, where our agency fee we're dropping to $375 a month. And then the ad budget, which you pay to Google, is again in that variable range.
All right. Do you have anything else to add about Google Ads before we kind of wrap this up?
No, other than it probably makes sense for us to do sort of an explainer video like this related to social media, and I'll just sort of plant the seeds about the differences. I use the terms push versus pull. And so the idea with Google is that these ads are showing up once someone's intentionally raised their hand and said, I'm looking for this product or service, and they may or may not have used your name, and they might have used the word website builders or website developers or website designers, but they've gone to Google, they've raised their hand, and they've expressed their interest. And then the ad came to them. The ad came to them because it was pulled to them. The person expressed their interest of what they're looking for, and then the ad was pulled to them. Now, the flip side of that on social media, it works very differently. We don't do targeting based on keywords. Rather, we target based on the specific demographics of the person, and we push those ads out. And on social media, typically people aren't in the news feed looking for website designers, Grand Prairie, although Facebook does have a search function, and some people would do that, but it's a very minimum amount. Instead, we would assume that someone's in their pajamas at home in quarantine. Maybe they're a business owner. They're spending a lot of time in the news feed, and all of a sudden now they're seeing an ad from 910 about how to digitally market in a downturn while you're locked up at your house. And that ad seems relevant to them because we've targeted them, but they've not pulled it to them. We've pushed it to them. So it's not an either or, should I be doing Google or Facebook? It's a discussion on what's my strategy to engage in pull advertising versus push advertising, and what would be my tactics that I would use across those two very, in this case, platforms that are very, they overlap to a certain degree and they benefit each other. And again, without getting too much detail, you kind of have your pull advertising on search, your push advertising on social, but in both cases, when someone clicks on them, where do they go? They go to the middle, which is your website or your landing pages, where you control the story, you offer the incentive, you generate the lead, you get the phone call or ring, etc.
Totally. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I definitely do a lot of Facebook ads for our clients, and I'm going to get way too in the details there. But yeah, I think that's a great idea to offer some insight on that as well, because they do have similarities between Google ads and Facebook ads and other social media ads. But there's definitely a different approach, and definitely different strategies for sure.
Perfect. So obviously, I think it makes sense for us to do another video like that. But you know what? We already have this general philosophy at 910. We spend a lot of time with our clients educating them and empowering them to do more in-house. And there's some things that, when it comes to social media, for example, there are some things, many things that you can do in-house with your company resources. And we do provide training and consultation. And also, if we have some clients that are looking for a little bit more information about branding or building a website or social media marketing or whatever the heck it might be, obviously it makes sense for us to share that information, and we can do that over a video. And Marissa, I know that you'll pull in the right team member to have that discussion.
Totally. So I guess as we wrap this up, I'll just say that if there's anything we didn't cover about Google Ads that you guys are really curious about, definitely feel free to ask away. Otherwise, we'll keep trucking along with some videos.
Thanks, Marissa. Hope everyone's doing well. Stay safe, and give us a ring if you need some assistance.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ryan.